And happy Friday. Well, it's about to be Saturday, but happy Friday anyway. Welcome back to the Grade A Flicks channel. As Grade A Fantasy would like to break down the tight ends and the defense for the Week 9 FanDuel main slate. Let's get right into it. Apologize for the delay. Like I said, I'm going to try and start doing what I did this week and jump right into the QB slate, like right after the slate is put up. Just gonna do that and just try to stay ahead of things so I can have at least videos out. But sometimes you want to wait and get confirmed news. So let's get right into it. To be honest, like I said, overall, yes, it's gotten better, but tight end truly does stink this year overall, with some outliers of games. Obviously, last weekend with all tight ends day, which I think was effing rigged. You know what? This is my channel. It was fucking rigged. All of a sudden, tight ends. Last week, it was probably optimal to have a double tight end set up in your damn flex. Let's be real. When it comes to consistency all year, except for a few duds, he just deserves the price, which is why now he's kind of getting that 2-3 years ago Mark Andrews Kelsey treatment when there was one or two guys near each other at the top and there's a significant gap. Well, let's give some props to Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers deserves a 77 price tag. I really thought he was probably going to get 8. I really thought he was going to get to 8 this week, but most likely will be next week. Yes, I know I have to charge my phone. But as you can see here, he's just a model consistency. Besides a few dud games, the targets are there 8, 9. Besides a couple of duds of 4 and 3, 12, 10, 14, and then last week 5. Even with 5 targets, still got to 58 yards, almost 60. 8.3 points. Before that, 14.3, 11.6, 19.7. And a couple of decent starting games to start his rookie season, 8.8 and 14.3. He absolutely deserves the price tag. I mean, with tight end being the way it is, he should be the next person to get to that 8,000. With a rejuvenated offense with Jameis Winston, FanDuel did not waste time. FanDuel actually did some good job pricing this year. From what I heard, DraftKings kind of slacked because since he had a bad game, Tyreek Hill is still cheap over there, so he'll be more chalkier on DK than he is on FanDuel. Even though he had a bad game, FanDuel made sure he went into the 8,000, so he's 85,000. He's 8,500 this week instead of being the cheap 79. Well, Njoku was 5 and maybe low 6s or whatever in the last 2 weeks, and then now boom, he's at 7,000. So he's basically what Mark Andrews and Travis Kelsey and Dalton Kincaid was looking like earlier this year. And then you drop down 200 more to Trey McBride. Not the best matchup, but like I said, he still commands targets in Arizona against that Chicago defense. When it comes to top plays, I definitely like Jake Ferguson. You just have to like Jake Ferguson because of the value. The Cowboys can't run the ball. The Cowboys just can't run the ball, so the ball has to go somewhere. And it always can't go to CeeDee Lamb. So, as you see here, 8, 4, 7, 7, 11, and 5. The smallest amount of targets he had was the week before against Detroit. And like I said, Jake Ferguson is and one of the bottom 10 against tight ends fantasy-wise. Jake Ferguson is definitely an option this week. Sam Laporta, like I said, no Jameis Williams. He hasn't had the best year, but like I said, he's been uptaking with the touchdowns. 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. 6 targets last week. Like I said, I'm pretty sure those would have went to J-Mo Moore because he's been pretty low on targets. Before last week, the highest amount of targets he got was 5. So for him to get 6, that just shows the Jameson Williams absence. There's an extra target, more routes being ran. I mean, he's running more routes, but with no Jameson Williams, he's definitely being looked at. So Sam Laporta, and he doesn't have a good matchup against Green Bay. Dalton Kincaid in that Buffalo-Miami game, he's always an option. Kyle Pitts has slowly, grown into a significant role as Atlanta keeps airing the ball out. Obviously, with as bad as the run defense isn't that, so you have to worry about those Bijan and Algier rule him out. There's a lot of mouths to feed. And remember, it's a 2-headed running back monster, not just Bijan. So if Algier's getting carries, and then they keep it on the ground with also Bijan, more than likely you're going to get the Kyle Pitts from the first 3 or 4 games instead of what you've been seeing here the last 2 weeks. 5 targets, 4 for 91, 2 touchdowns, 9 targets, 7 for 65. And then, like I said, from October, it seems like he's been picking up. And then, obviously, September, you had these games here. Yes, he got the touchdown, but I saw that opening week, and the Kyle Pitts touchdown was really off a broken play. It was just a busted coverage. Kirk Cousins, even with his bad knee, was still recovering. He was able to get out of the way of pressure and found him open in the right corner of the end zone. So, stat is a stat, but sometimes you have to really read into it. Sometimes that's why you can't just scoreboard watch. So, if Dallas defense continue to struggle, I really do think you're not going to have Kyle Pitts part of that reason. You won't get the Kyle Pitts that you see in these 3 or 4 games. You'll get September Kyle Pitts, where you'll see that, and you might get lucky to get a touchdown. So that's a play to be wary about, but it's, play to be wary, but it's still a play nevertheless. Dallas Goedert is ruled out. So yes, you can go all the way down to Greg Alcantara. With him out lately, Calcaterra doesn't get that much looks. He has one season high with 4 targets. That's it. I know people do mention him or whatever, and then his price or whatever, but ever since he gets mentioned, I just faded. If people want to go to Calcaterra, I don't want any pieces of that. Noah Fant was ruled out, so I guess you can kind of scroll down, and if you want to play somebody that cheap, you could possibly look at AJ Barner. You can look at AJ Barner, or just say like, hey, that's more Jackson Smith and Jigba. I am getting ahead of myself, skipping all the way down here. But let's take a look at what are the other options too, because they do, like, Gino will use, I think it will be Barner. And then I think, he got a couple of targets last week. Because the only 2 that are mainly getting touches, I think it's him, and I think it's Pharaoh Brown, if I'm not mistaken. Pharaoh Brown hasn't really racked up any stats since the 6th, so yeah. So just to put it out there, Noah Fant's out with the groin, so a cheap tight end would be Barn. And let me see, what's the news here? Yeah. Like I said, they do have a trio. He hasn't done anything, but yeah, I know Pharaoh Brown is still on the team. You could pick either or, but like I said, Barner seems to be the lead man. But obviously in this case, I think there will be a trio, but those are options for if they get in the goal line and grab some catches, or if Barner does what he does here, what he did last week, 2 for 34, 4.4 matches, he gets a little bit more than, and it is a good match against the Rams. So one of these guys, all they need, whether it's Barner or Pharaoh Brown, all they need is a few catches. What is it? A few catches and maybe 50 yards, and they 1.5x their salary, and then you're just hoping for the rest of your lineup to blow up. So just a little injury news there. You can go in that direction if you like. Let's get back to all the other teams and finish out the tight ends so we can get to the defenses. I got to about this area right here. This is interesting. I think, like I said, you got to try everything against a bad defense. I think with him being the healthiest he's been all year, I think Taysom Hill is definitely GPP option. I love going to Taysom Hill this week. I'm going to have some of Taysom Hill this week just to try it, of course. As we keep going down, the whole TJ Hawkinson thing, I will definitely be a wait and see. I'm not a big GPP player. I'm not the 150 max in the milli or 150 in anything. Like I said, FanDuel messed up that $3 contest. So if I was to buy 30 entries or whatever, I probably would have had Hawkinson maybe a couple times. Only a couple times. But Hawkinson, it's his first game off the knee injury. I will definitely be playing the wait and see. So it's one of those, if Hawkinson beats me, he beats me. Obviously, it's a big name at a cheap price. This is his first game back, so I'm not going to jump on everything. I'm not going to jump on like everybody else probably will be. Gesicki has been picking up his level. He'll look at to get more targets in a good matchup. Bottom 10, bottom 12 against tight ends is the Raiders last week. 8 for 73, 8 targets, 7 receptions for 73. Just didn't get the touchdown. So maybe that happens. Obviously with no Higgins, I mentioned in the video as well. You all know you can get Yoshi. You might even want to go even more GPP and go, not to mention wide receivers in this video, but Trent Irwin. Zach Ertz, an option against the Giants. Like I said, even though it's weird for me to say it, but obviously if you have somebody like Taysom Hill that does go against Juwan Johnson, because he'll take away some of the goal line targets, because that's what Juwan Johnson is. Juwan Johnson is a goal line target. If I'm not mistaken, it's not clear. I'll have to check because I haven't really checked on much of the news with the quarterbacks. Is he starting or was he ruled out? I'm trying to find out. You got Jake Will Levis. I don't see. Oh, why not just do this? I don't see. Let me go to the Saints. I don't see Derek Carr. Yeah, he did get cleared. So there you go. So Derek Carr is clear. So yes, the fact that Derek Carr is in, obviously the boost goes to the wide receivers. But then yes, Jawan Johnson looks a little bit better. I think if it was Spencer Rattler, you'll get more packages with. You'll get even more packages with Taysom Hill. But now Taysom Hill is just in the red zone. I think Jawan Johnson could still get something from Derek Carr, but at that cheap price. I really do like the fact that with Derek Carr being there, Juwan Johnson's day is just not ruined by getting the goal line, just the goal line look. So I definitely like that. The sick is a good play. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Calcaterra. I already gave you the Seattle options. And when it comes to tight ends, I think this is as far as you go. I don't really like nothing else this far. There's nothing. I mean, I guess, Will Disley's an option. I guess. But after that, like I said, I definitely love, like I said, bad defense. I really like Taysom Hill getting a couple of late, maybe garbage time. Hey, if they're ahead, maybe Taysom Hill's running the offense. So I definitely like that. I got no issues with that. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get on to the defenses. Defenses are interesting because, some news came out. It's 5,200 against Indianapolis. Guess what? That's a misprice because you got a better quarterback. If it was Anthony Richardson, even if Anthony Richardson was the quarterback, I was not paying, even for Minnesota at home, for 5,200. No, I'm not doing that. That 5,200 defense is just something that just doesn't work most of the time. It rarely ever does. So, in most cases with the $5,200 defense, I normally fade that. This is Joe Flacco. More accurate passer, reads the defense better. Can he get some sacks? Yes. But 5,200, 5,000, you got to get a touchdown or have some type of amazing game where you get like 6, 7 sacks or 2 interceptions with like a strip sack, fumble recovery, and all that other stuff. I'm not dealing with that. The Saints are viable to be a 5,000 defense because even though they're on the road, they're going against the worst teams. But the way the Saints have been playing, I don't think they're even worth that. I'm willing to beat that chalk, and I understand. And I understand Bryce Young is not a good quarterback and probably still can't score against them. But as usual, there's just other options that I would just rather take. Tennessee and New England is a whole $300 cheaper, and they're at home. I actually like that a little bit. Baltimore at home is interesting. Like I said, I'm a Denver fan. They're not a juggernaut with a defense of the front seven that they have, but their weakness is giving up the deep ball. So at 4,600, they can't afford to be giving up deep passes and giving up 20 whatever points. And Bo Nix does a good job of taking care of the ball. Doesn't turn over the ball that much. But like I said, there's a lot of high options here that have significant flaws that I could find in like picking some of these people. If anything, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to a spend up, I actually like the Eagles against Jacksonville at home for 4,500. As we keep going lower, like I said, the quarterback situation in Cleveland is now different. So the Chargers shouldn't be that high. I mean, I don't think so. I think the Chargers defense should be 4,000. I know I could possibly find, like for instance, against Vegas, I would definitely switch Cincinnati and make them 200 high against Vegas, and them being at home. New England and Tennessee. New England's defense, they play hard and being on the road. I like them at 4,000. They could apply pressure to the quarter. They could apply pressure to the quarterback, and obviously after losing one of the wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins or whatever. The offense, obviously they have a good run defense, so obviously you're going to be asking Will Levis to pass the ball more. So definitely that's tendency for turnovers right there. What Washington Commanders. The defense has been playing well the last 2 weeks, so obviously 15. Let me see, allowing only 15 and 7. So in 2 weeks, so when they were at Baltimore, that was a shootout. They allowed 30. Before that, they played Deshaun Watson, allowed 13. Arizona 14. Early in the year, they was giving up some points, and then ever since basically week 4, only one blow up. Because after the 30-point outburst against Baltimore, Carolina only scored 7, Chicago 15. So they're not allowing the scores. So getting some front 7 pressure against Daniel Jones and maybe a turnover. They're good at 39. We're starting to get into the mid to cheap ranges. Atlanta maybe at home. I mean, they haven't been that impressive. I really thought Atlanta was going to be a better defense than that. But, at home, they seem to be fine. I mean, it's a team that can't run the ball, so it's literally you're playing a one-dimensional team. So I definitely like the Falcons there. They seem to always get like a fumble recovery and an interception each week. It's just a case of can they get enough sacks? Because they do give up a decent amount of points. As you can see, their totals go to 3, 3, 2, 1 outburst to 17, and then 2, 15, 0, and 6. So we're looking at that right there. Obviously, keep an eye on Detroit. If Jordan Love is hurt, 3,700, even though they're on the road, that's still a play that I'll pay attention to. And other big plays, I think as we go down further, it's kind of weird, but I'm going to go all the way to the bottom. And I think this is the first time in a while that I've gone this far to the bottom. I think I've mentioned the minimum defense before, but we all see there's viability fantasy-wise to picking the Raiders. First off, when you pick the mid defense on FanDuel, they're 3,000. So to double their value, all you got to do is score like a 5, 5.5, 6, if they can a 6. Well, they can't get halves because they don't have halves, so they're looking at a 5 or a 6. 27 against KC, 14 against the Rams. Raiders are one of the worst teams. They've only negative one time, though. And that was, crazily enough, I'm saying Carolina, but guess what? If you remember, that's when Carolina's offense started looking real good when they made the switch from Bryce Young and they went to Andy Dalton for the first time. After that, this is a viable defense to pick at 3,000. I think Max Crosby should be able to get some pressure off the edge. We already know we have a small sample size of what this offense looks like without T. Higgins. They can't really generate that much pressure, but as you can see here, they're doing a decent job. Only two games that they gave up 30. They get enough sacks to hold. They get turnovers, as you can see, interception in almost all the games so far. They have 2 and multiple sack games of at least 3 times this year. So I'm just giving you an option. Like, you could throw the Raiders in there and they can meet their value. Minimum, when you get a minimum defense, to be honestly, you're just asking not to get. I mean, you don't want any defense to get to 0, but 3,000, it's a bonus as long as they stay in the positive side. Like I said, there's a chance that obviously there's still a chance that they still won't win the game. But if Max Crosby and that defensive line can at least get some pressure, and the Raiders do apply minimal pressure, but as you can see there, they have a few games where they allow mid to high 20s, but they balance it out with the sacks and maybe the one interception that they could get. You can have a $3,000 defense that's going to give you a 5. Obviously, you're looking for more turnovers and more upside, and it'll be great if somebody could get or do something on special teams to get them that 9, 10, 11. But when you're paying the minimum, your goal is, hey, can you guys give me anywhere from a 4 to a 7? And since I'm paying the minimum for you, I'm able to automatically start paying for studs. Because there's a decent amount of value. Not much, but there's a decent amount of value this week. Well, some value this week. Because if the Raiders are the first defense you put in, as you can see here, I plugged them in. And once you plug them in, 71.25. And just to give you a good idea, let's say you want to, this is kind of a GPP style. I'm not going to build a lineup, but here's the start. I'm going minimum. Then I go to tight end. And who did I say is a nice GPP play? Taysom Hill against Carolina, who should get some packages against Carolina. If you do this, If you do this, every other player from here on out, you already got the defense and the tight end, quarterback, your 2 running backs, your 3 wide receivers, and your flex position now have an average of 7,300. Do what you want with that, but I really do like that starting build. There's reasons why I pick the Raiders. There is. I think other people think the Raiders won't be able to do anything, but the sample size of no T. Higgins, it makes it look even better for Brown. So if you're giving it to your running back more, even though most likely you probably can't give it to Chase, they should be able to concentrate on Chase, double coverage, whatever. If you're worried about, slowly getting it down the field with Yoshi, with Gesicki, and then running the ball with Chase Brown, that's less drives. You have to look at it as that's less drive, more time on the clock, and less opportunity for the Bengals later on in the game to pile up points because they're obviously matriculating the ball down the field, not pushing the ball down the field, and speeding up more opportunities to get the ball back. All little things why I think the Raiders are a viable 3,000 punt defense. Other than that, that is the end of the video. Good luck this weekend. Grade A Fantasy, signing off.